Hello, my name is Ryan Spencer, and for our group project, we're going to be discussing the ways that we have proposed to combat drug-resistant malaria in the Southeast Asian country of Myanmar. So I'm just going to share my screen here with you for a moment, and you can follow along. So malaria prevention in Myanmar. Myanmar, like I said, is a Southeast Asian country. It used to be ruled by the British Empire until the 1940s, after which it declared its independence, was going along fine until the 1970s when it was under military rule. It was under military rule from the 1970s till 2011, and then it became a democracy. But even after becoming a democracy, there are still some ethnic tensions in the area, in the country, especially along the borders. And you can find all these refugee camps along those borders. And that's really the focus of where we come in, where our problem really starts, is the mosquito and malaria. There's inadequate resources to prevent the spread of malaria, to combat malaria. So we hope that we can provide educational courses and mosquito nets for beds, windows, and doors to the homes of the people that live along along its country's borders, to protect from an outbreak of drug-resistant strains or parasites of malaria. So malaria is something that affects us worldwide, and the reason why malaria in Myanmar is so of importance is because it's resistant to drug treatments. So it could cause many deaths. So we know that malaria is a parasite that infects humans and targets the liver. This malaria is transmitted by mosquito bites. Initially affects liver cells. Once those liver cells are affected, they were modified and then enter the bloodstream and affect red blood cells. And then in turn affect other parts of the human body. Common symptoms of malaria are fever, loss of blood, coma, and death. The most commonly affected people with malaria are pregnant women, children under the age of 5. So here's a map of Myanmar. Myanmar has access to the sea, but borders here with Thailand, a little bit of Laos, China, and India, and then Bangladesh right here in the northwestern part. We're concerned with these border areas in Myanmar, especially here with Thailand, and in here mainly with Thailand and Laos and China. As you can see here, we have a map of the distribution of where drug-resistant strains of malaria have been found in Myanmar. Here it's labeled Burma. So it's quite alarming that we need to really implement our program in this area to prevent the spread of this drug-resistant strain of parasite. So it's a problem in Myanmar for 2 reasons. Malaria is resistant. This type of malaria is resistant to the most powerful treatment that's known. That is a drug called Artacima. So commonly you'll see this listed as Artacima-resistant malaria parasites. And the second reason that this is a problem and there's need of our project in the region is that there's no surveillance system in Burma or Myanmar to monitor the spread. The Myanmar government has said, ministers of certain government departments have said that it lacks access to certain areas and the means and resources to combat malaria, although it recognizes the need for it. So we hope to go in, and part of our project, we're going to distribute and put in place nets that are coated in insecticide. The abbreviation for this is LLIN, long-lasting insecticide treated nets. So we're going to introduce these new nets that are custom made for the doors and windows of homes. This is a new idea, as mostly we technically only treat the bed, where we just have a bed net over, or a net over the bed. So we know that the bed nets cost anywhere from $3 to $5 per reports of the CDC and the Against Malaria Foundation. So we estimate up from that it's not going to be much different to put one more net in the home for windows and doors. That being because the circumference around the bed and to the ceiling is greater, the area covered is greater than what the area would be for a window and door, so we could use the same material that would cover one bed, but we can cover up to 3 windows and 1 door. Oh, sorry. So these nets are going to have a life of 3 to 4 years.
So things that we would be teaching about. First, what exactly is malaria? We would talk to them about what the disease is and where it originates. Parasites get infected, and then they infect mosquitoes, and mosquitoes transmit it to humans. According to the CDC, malaria is a serious and sometimes fatal disease. We would talk about the symptoms. There's fever, chills, headache, sweats, fatigue, nausea, and vomiting. This is according to the WebMD. Some of the less common symptoms are a dry, non-productive cough, muscles or back pain, or both, enlarged spleen. And symptoms can appear in 7 days, and the time between exposure and illness, signs of illness may sometimes be as long as 8 to 10 months. So when we are talking about these symptoms, some people might not be sure when to seek help, and they really should start seeking help as soon as any of these symptoms start showing up. They should go and get help. Where to go? They should go to the nearest clinic or any place that has a place where they can test for malaria. We would be in Burma, so all the different locations would be different, but we would be able to teach them the closest location they could get help. What kind of medicine to take for malaria? There's a lot of drugs out there that say they are for malaria, but they're actually not. And if someone takes these, it can make the malaria a lot worse and even drug resistant if they take them. So we would tell them exactly what kind of drugs to take. And according to the CDC, these are the main drugs that are used to prevent and cure malaria. And then we'd also teach how to avoid malaria. A big thing would be how to use bed nets, to use screens on windows or doors, or the bed nets on the windows and doors. Use insectant repellents, avoid mosquito bites, get treatments quickly, and use all the medication prescribed to avoid drug-resistant malaria in the future. A lot of times people start to get better, and so they stop taking the drugs. And then if they get the disease again, it comes back even harder. We would also explain why bed nets are so important. According to the CDC, they are proven to show they decrease malaria in the areas that they are used. They help prevent disease and even death. They kill mosquitoes so others in the community are safer, and they prevent death in children under the age of 5 by like 20%. So it's a really big deal, especially in areas where malaria is so popular and common. We also teach about how pregnant women and children are more susceptible. Newborns and infants less than 12 months of age are one of the most vulnerable groups affected by malaria. During pregnancy, malaria infections in the mother cause low birth weight and result in infant death, according to WHO. So it's a really big thing that they know they need to be careful and be cautious about malaria because it can affect them so much more. Some people might say that this is a waste of time, but there's been a lot of research that proves that the more people know about where malaria comes from and how to deal with it, the more that they will seek help and they will try to get better. and they'll go and get help as soon as symptoms start to come up, and they'll be better able to avoid it once they know where the disease's origin's at. One of the big things about teaching that to make it work is you have to monitor. So we would probably stay in an area for a little bit and watch the people and see and make sure that their behavior changes, that they're using the bed nets, that they're trying to avoid mosquito bites, that pregnant women and children are very cautious, especially when it comes to mosquito bites and any of the other symptoms.
So every country has its own social and religious beliefs, and Burma's no exception. And some of those beliefs, or I guess I should start off by saying that in Burma, they practice Buddhism. And so a lot of their social and religious beliefs come into play. And some could potentially be hurdles that we would have to, first understand them and be able to find a way past them, or find a way to help the people understand our point of view as well. Some of those hurdles that we may have to jump over to help them improve their health include all of these bullet points here. The top one is that they respect their elders so much to the point that their elders' wisdom is heralded over new ideas in some situations. And the next one on the list is that killing any living creature is wrong. Number 3 is the reluctance or avoidance to perform a task should it displease or embarrass anyone else. And then there are also, many cultural niceties or behaviors that could offend the people if we do not understand them and do not follow the boundaries. So talking about the religion and culture, about 89% of people in Burma practice Theravada Buddhism. In Theravada Buddhism, they believe that understanding comes to everyone all at once and is not necessarily gleaned over time. So it's not necessarily a journey, rather once they receive their understanding, that's their understanding. They also believe that all life is precious and they should not kill any living thing. And that could potentially include mosquitoes and other pests. They also believe that decisions must be made after careful contemplation, analysis, and with the consideration, important word there, consideration of elderly advice. Some of the social actions and words that are not appropriate and maybe displeasing, so we should try to avoid them, would include that they revere their elders to have the most knowledge. And so we need to understand that when approaching them. They believe that embarrassing or displeasing someone else is wrong and should not be done. They also believe it is rude and taboo to touch another person's head or feet. The reason being because the head is considered the highest point of the body and should not be touched by another person or defiled, is kind of the way they look at it. And the feet are the lowest point of the body and should not be used to gesture toward another person because that is considered extremely rude. Another thing to consider when socializing is that Buddha images are considered extremely sacred to them, and it's blasphemous to point at them. I have read, though, that that's something practiced more by the older generation, and a lot of the newer generation doesn't really focus on that very much. The last thing, like social action that is considered very respectful, is to take shoes off before entering houses, monasteries, and pagoda compounds out of respect. Most people, the other thing that might come to be a bit of a hurdle is that most people don't have a lot of money, if any, to help improve their health care. So that may also become a hurdle that we would have to address. But here's what we can do. In order to follow social norms, we need to make sure and not touch the head or feet of another person. Don't gesture toward anyone with your feet. Don't, point at Buddha figures or any kind of figures that are sacred to them in their religion. Don't do anything to embarrass or disrespect anyone. Try to be as respectful as you can in explaining your viewpoint. And then we need to make sure and show great respect for anyone that's older than us, because they are considered, more knowledgeable. And so we need to make sure that we're listening to their concerns, as well as addressing our thoughts. And it is always good to remember removing shoes before entering a dwelling, because that shows great respect for the home and for the people living therein. Also, we need to look for alternative financing through grants or other programs, and to use that money to the people's advantage, and be prepared with less expensive materials or ideas, I guess, to accomplish the job, in helping them improve their health. And then finally, we can also, in addressing their religious beliefs, remind them that not only is it important to honor your elders should they consider improvements to be, not worth it, they should consider their counsel, but also analyze the situation. If they look closely at the problems caused by mosquitoes, they will realize just how beneficial for them and better for the environment as a whole it would be to limit those pests, the mosquitoes.
The first grant that we are going to be working with is from grants.gov, and some of the requirements in order to receive this grant are that we are going to, it's for funding innovative research projects and evaluating activities with the potential to yield the high impact public health findings or strategies that will decrease the overall burden of malaria and increase the health and well-being of the populations. And we believe that with our nets, we're going to qualify for that. And the amount that this grant is for $1 million. The next grant is available through the Global Fund, and the objective of this grant is to prevent malaria using long-lasting insecticidal nets and insecticide-treated mosquito nets in high and moderate risk villages in 180 townships, and strengthen technical and administrative management capacity for malaria control at all levels. And this is specifically for the Myanmar area. And the amount for this grant would be around $6 million. The next grant that is that we're going to be looking at is also through the Global Fund, and it's pretty similar to the last one. It focuses on 100 priority townships that need to control malaria, and it's working on the epidemic-prone areas, and the grant money is for around $120,000. So the organizations that we're thinking about working with that would be beneficial to our cause is the Rollback Malaria organization, and it was launched in 1998 by WHO, UNICEF, UNDP, and the World Bank, and it's comprised now of more than 500 partners. We're also planning on working with the Global Fund, as we talked about earlier, with their grants that they have available. The Three Diseases Fund, IMO, Department of Disease Control, Ministry of Public Health, American Refugee Foundation, and the Rax Thai Foundation. And we believe that working with all of these organizations and applying for these various grants we will be able to fund our NETS project that will help cut back on the incidence of drug-resistant malaria occurrence.